Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of 410 Sports Talk. We are live on a Tuesday night. I am James Haskell, along with my co-host, Glenn Martin. Of course, DK in the background, gracing us with his presence. We're excited to hop on live tonight. And actually, to be completely transparent here, Glenn and I, we're going to do some recorded videos tonight, but we decided we would hop on with you guys to really dig into this playoff picture as it continues to, come into form and we get more clarity on, one, whether or not the Ravens are going to make the playoffs, what their chances are. Two, what they're likely going to be seeded, and three, kind of what our hopeful matchups will be. So there's a lot of meat on the bone here when it comes to this conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. So before we get into it, give us take a second, give us a subscribe, turn on your notifications, and of course, as always, hit the like button and comment in the comment section below as you feel so inspired. But Glenn, let's kind of start with, a lot of people already know this, but let's kind of start with where we see, what the chances are the Ravens make the playoffs at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Quick shout out, Jimmy. What's going on, Jimmy? What's going on, Sean?
Much, man, I'm good.
Jimmy Kidwell. All right, you're James on this program.
That's true.
Or Jimbo Slimbo
on this program.
Yeah. What's going on, Mike? Hey, Lindsay, how you doing? Dan, appreciate you coming out. What's going on, Orion? Let's see. We beaten the massage. The massage.
Who's playing horrible, by the way.
Yeah, looks like he's had 700 and some days off. All right, so let's get into where the Ravens currently stand, and we'll kind of take it from there. So after the Ravens win in Pittsburgh over the Pittsburgh Steelers, they raised their playoff chances to a whopping 99% chance to make the playoffs. So it's all but guaranteed that the Ravens will make the playoffs. The only question is, what's their seed and who's going to be their matchup in the opening round. Now, while they have a 99% chance, Jimbo, to make the playoffs, according to, 538, they have a 61% chance to win the AFC North. And according to ESPN, they have a 67% chance to win the AFC North. So in the 60s, mid to high 60s, I guess, if you want to take the middle ground there. But good shot that they're going to make the playoffs, okay? So currently the Ravens sit at the number 3 seed because they have the tiebreaker over the Cincinnati Bengals, who also are 9-4. But the Cincinnati Bengals are 2-3 in the division. So really, even if they were to lose to the Bengals in the final week, that head-to-head would then be nullified, sure. But then the next tiebreaker would go immediately to division record. And so as long as the Ravens don't completely collapse over these next 3 division games, then they have a really good shot, I think, at winning their division. And that would mean that they would likely stay in the spot that they're currently at, which is the 3 seed, Jimbo, behind the 10-3 Buffalo Bills and 10-3 Kansas City Chiefs. So I just, you know what, I'm just going to pull this up on the screen here because I think that would make things a little easier, right?
Yeah, as you do that, I mean, it's interesting because obviously each game is equally important from a record standpoint. But man, I really think this Browns game, this game is going to be super important, at least in my opinion. Not that the next games won't be, but something about the momentum going into the second half of the test when it comes to the division. Like you said, we're 3-0 now. But if we can get 4-0, start heading downhill, we're kind of at the peak of the mountain, start heading downhill a little bit, get some momentum. It's going to be really exciting. But all right, let's pop this baby up here, see what we got. Okay, cool. All right, let's check this out. So like you said, Glenn, right now we're at the 3 seed, and of course, accompanying us in the playoffs would be the Bengals within our division. You guys can see the 1 through 7. If, just for the sake of reminding everyone, the top 7 teams get in. Only the number 1 seed has a bye. And it looks like right now that could be the Buffalo Bills, but we could see some flip-flopping there depending on how them and the Kansas City Chiefs end up. But Glenn, let's say we hold. It's more likely than not that we hold and we win the division.
Yeah.
Right?
Looks like
so. Let me ask you this first. Is there a possibility that we jump to a 1 or a 2 seed?
Well, it certainly is. I mean, Kansas City still got some pretty tough games on their schedule, as well as the Buffalo Bills. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the second to last game for the Bills, the Bengals and the Bills?
The Bengals, yep.
Yeah, still face off. So, yeah, it's certainly still possible that the Ravens could go up. I think it's less likely they move down unless we see, again, a total collapse and we see the Bengals continue to win and stuff like that. Maybe they drop out of that spot. I think it's more likely they lose the division and drop straight to the wild card than they simply lose
Yeah.
the seeding over the Tennessee Titans. But very likely they could move up, Jimbo.
Yeah, let me give you kind of an idea. Just to recap the schedules for the 1 and 2 seed for the
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills. They got a tough road. I think these last 4 games are going to be difficult for them. They're at home against the Dolphins, who they lost to already this year. They're on the road against the Bears, which we can call that game a win in most scenarios. They're away against the Bengals, like you mentioned, and then they're at home against the Patriots. So to me, the only game, I know the Patriots are not an incredible football team, but they're number 7 right now for a reason, and certainly
it's likely they'll be desperate in that game,
right? So they're going to throw the whole kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
Everything that Patricia can muster from his offensive, all the brain power he's got there. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So they got a bit of a tough road, I think, to stay in that number 1 spot. Now the Chiefs got a little easier. They're at the Texans. They're at home against the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a good team, but
Yeah.
I don't know if
he'll be heavily favored.
yeah, they're at home against the Broncos, and then they're on the road against the Raiders. So the 3 out of the 4 teams have nothing left to play for that the Chiefs are playing.
And who's the one? The Seattle Seahawks?
The Seattle Seahawks, right? I think are the only ones that have something to play for in my mind. So I think if there's a seat up for grabs,
it's probably the 2.
Probably 2, and probably going to be to the flopping with the Bills, us taking the 2 and then taking the 3, right?
Yeah, it's the way it's looking, but of course, you never do know how that's going to work out. But let's say it all ends how it is right now, Jimbo.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. Yeah, I'm interested to see. Let's do that, and then we'll look at the 2 to see which one we would prefer, because I think it would also make a difference as far as who we play and things like that, right?
Yeah, and Sean wants to jump in here. He says, boys, serious question. Assuming this team makes the playoffs, what do you think their chances of actually making it to the championship at least, compared to teams like Kansas City or Buffalo? Well, certainly Buffalo would have, whoever has the 1 seed is going to have a huge advantage having a first-round bye and home field throughout the playoffs, which a team like Buffalo and Kansas City would really – it's interesting because I think Kansas City, of course, they're going to benefit from being at home with that crowd the way it is. It's absolutely crazy. But I wonder if Buffalo truly did build their team correctly. I think they drafted their quarterback correctly for that weather. But to have a team that struggles and really doesn't even attempt to have a run game, it's kind of interesting to have a team that is going to be in such poor weather. So yeah, your quarterback can hopefully zip it in inclement weather and cold conditions, but I think I'd rather my team be having a big, strong offensive line I could run the ball behind if I was going to build a team in upstate New York.
Certainly in theory, right? But it hasn't ended up that way. Sean, I mean, you don't want to know my answer, right? Because everyone's going to call me an absolute homer. But number 1, there's the old adage that goes, once you get in the dance,
never know.
You never do know, right? So that comes into play. Number 2, what do you pack on the road, Glenn? And what do you pack in the playoffs? You pack a defense
and a run game. That's right.
Right. So the Baltimore Ravens check that list. I know there's a lot of doubters out there. There's a lot of haters out there that say this type of offense can't score in the playoffs and things like that. But let's remember that, last week, Lamar Jackson wasn't under center, and that people seem to forget how big of a difference Lamar Jackson will make, not only in the run game, but also in the pass game. Right. So anyway, I think that the Ravens have as good of a chance as Kansas City and Buffalo, in my opinion, barring health. Like if Lamar is back, the offensive line stays healthy, and JK continues to get strong, and Gus stays healthy, like regardless of the weapons that we have on the outside, because that defense is smothering right now and playing really good football. So, I just have visions of running the ball 42 times against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If it's working, I think, like you said, they have just as good a shot as anybody. But every team has its warts. Every team has areas that if you expose those areas, they're going to have a tough time with. And certainly the Ravens aren't immune to that. They're going to have issues. Like if you, let's say for whatever reason, you fumble the opening kickoff, quick score, and all of a sudden you're down by 2 scores. I think that's a game script the Ravens would like to not be in. They want to have a close game or have the lead and then continue to run the clock out and beat you up with that run game and let their defense do their thing. But let's get into it. If they ended how it's currently constructed, the
Really
Buffalo.
quickly, Gun, I just have some
Yeah.
cool news. I didn't mean to
What?
cut you off.
What?
Sean Pisker won our competition.
Did he?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean. I figured that was cutoff worthy. Shout
Yeah.
out to you, Sean. You had the super chat up there, so I wanted to make sure you knew in case you had something else to do or you were busy. Just with life. And so before you hopped off, if you did, which I didn't think you were, but wanted to make sure you knew you won. DK,
Man,
I
that's
think that
awesome.
he said he was what, 4 out of 4? 4 out of 4, second week in a row. DK, bro. Second week in a row, people 4 out of 4, man.
Yeah, man. They're keying in on your over-unders here.
But I guess he was the only one. If it did it need to go to tiebreakers, DK? There were 2 people that were 4 to 4.
Okay.
Gotcha. That were 4 out of 4. So shout out to you, Sean.
Yeah.
Make sure you send us in Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Send us your address and shirt size, and we will get a shirt sent out to you. Anyway, Glenn, didn't mean to cut off your flow there. But I do rock, Glenn. Thanks, James. You guys rock. Appreciate that, Sean.
Rock. Yeah, nothing like a guy telling you he rocks.
That's right, man.
That is the best. But all right. So it ended like this. The Buffalo Bills would have the first round bye. And in the first round, while they're sitting at home enjoying themselves, the Kansas City Chiefs will be hosting a playoff game against the New England Patriots. Man, good luck to the Patriots in that matchup. But the Baltimore Ravens would host the Miami Dolphins. Jimbo, we've seen them two face off before. It went really good for the Ravens for 3 quarters. It went outstanding for the Ravens for 3 quarters. And then that damn last, 15 plays happened.
Yep.
They scored 28 points in that 4th quarter on the Ravens defense and ultimately snuck out of Baltimore with a win. What would you feel like if you saw the Ravens having to go up against the Dolphins?
Bring it. No way we're losing 2 times in a row. I just can't see it. A lot of people, Harbaugh gets flack, and some of it's well-deserved, some of it's not. But John knows how to prepare his team, certainly for the playoffs. He's got a really solid playoff record, and certainly on the road. In this scenario, will be at home. But I don't see a first-year coach coming into Baltimore and giving it to this team from a coaching standpoint. I don't think that they're more prepared. And then from a personnel standpoint, I mean, just talking about pride, this defense is not losing again to this team. And then you add on top of that the offense who, sputtered there at the end of the game as well. I think that this would be a unfortunate scenario for the Miami Dolphins. I think it would just be absolute bloodshed. Not that we're going to dominate them as far as score, but I mean, we're going to run the ball down their throats and just smother them as much as possible on defense. And they got weapons, right? Like, I don't think we're going to run them out the park, but I just think it's going to be an absolute beatdown from a physicality standpoint.
Wow.
Love it.
I like your confidence. Ravens O's Nation says, quick side story. Not only did the Ravens beat the Steelers, but I beat my Pitt fan friend in fantasy football and took over first place in the division. Hashtag Ravens flock. My guy. That's awesome.
You got me in fantasy this week?
No, you got me.
Shut up. I haven't even looked at it.
Well, it was everyone. You would have thought I would have won, but I had Ramondre Stevenson on Monday night, and I needed just a few points, and he got hurt.
Oh, dude, that's terrible.
Dude,
I didn't even look.
Yeah, because I mean, you wouldn't think you had to, but I only needed I needed like 5 points from Ramondre, and he hadn't had that little all year, and then he got hurt. So
well, I'm out of the playoffs anyway. Are you in the playoffs?
No, I missed.
Yeah, that's okay.
Second highest score in the league, somehow didn't make the playoffs. Anyway, I'm not here to talk and whine about my my fantasy team.
Shout out to Ravens O's Nation.
Yeah, congratulations on your win. Hope you tear it up in the playoffs. Sean, our fantasy league's a tough one to get into, man. It's Jimbo will tell you, it's a competitive group. We've been doing it 12 years. It's a pretty intense draft. It's a live 12-man draft with me.
It is a serious commitment.
Yeah, you got to be ready if you're going to come over for this draft. Yeah, it's crazy. A lot of talking, You know, a lot of insults being thrown about. But anyway, all right, let's get back into this. All
A
right.
lot of stuff that would not be said on the show.
Yeah, most of it's coming out of my mouth because I really love draft day. Let's just say that. It's like a top 3 day of my year. I love it.
Uh,
So you're confident.
yes. How
You're
are you
feeling
feeling?
well, I'll say that right now, Tua is not playing at his best. He's
Yeah.
struggling.
Mhm.
I think that their defense is showing some vulnerabilities. I'd feel good about it, but I will say they got weapons all over the field, and I
Yeah.
respect their weapons. I think that the trade for Jeff Wilson, while he has put the ball on the ground a couple times, I think it was a nice addition. He's a guy who
Mhm.
knows the system, brings some added depth to the to the backfield when Mostert is inevitably in and out of the lineup, constantly missing practice. So I like what they did in the backfield. Their weapons on the outside are the two fastest receivers in football, and Tua, when he's playing well, is accurate with the ball, and we saw him at his best, and his best at least is good enough to do what he did here in Baltimore. So I'd be concerned, but I will say I do believe scoring 28 points in that short of time, I think you can call that a fluke.
Fair
So
enough.
I'll bank on the first 3 quarters. Now let me ask you this, Jimbo.
Mhm.
Do you feel better about playing the Miami Dolphins? Who would you feel
Yeah.
like? What happens if the Bengals are matched up with us week 1? Is this like a division matchups make you more nervous? Who would you
Yeah, I don't
rather
like
see?
that one. Yeah, I'd rather see the Dolphins. I don't like the Bengals because it's just a more familiar foe, right?
Yeah.
And so it leaves less. I mean, the game I think to me would be very thin in its margin of error. Um.
So even at
So
home, you'd rather. Okay, that's interesting. So Joey Burrow's got a little fear in you.
yeah, I mean for sure, right?
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Glenn, I'm gonna put you on solo mode. I just had something happen.
Oh, okay. Take care of it.
Do I know how to do this? Actually, can you put yourself on solo mode?
I have
Either
no
way, I'll be
idea.
right back.
All right, all right. All right. Well, as Christopher says in the chat here, yeah, you're right. The pass rush was not there yet. I mean, this was a totally different edge group than what Tua faced before. And just look at Oweh's snap count in that game versus this game. And part of that's on Oweh, but also I think part of that is on the group around him, how good JPP's playing, how impressive Bowser's been since the return from injury. I don't think anyone anticipated the way he's getting around the edge, the way, I mean, I guess his coverage skills were expected, but I'm super impressed by his burst and explosiveness coming off an injury that happened so late last season. And then Justin Houston, I mean, 9 sacks. Yeah, he's been cooled off the last couple games, but nobody could have expected him to play the way he is. And I still think there's going to be a time where Mr. Ajabo is going to come into this group and make that even more formidable. So I think that's a really good point. Let's see. Jimbo.
Who's your preference?
My preference is also the Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
I think if anything, if for nothing else, Cincinnati has shown that the moment's not too big for them. They got to the
Right.
Super Bowl last year, much of the same group. And I tell you, the pass rushers scare me. Now, I think one of them got hurt. There's Hendrickson and oh man, who's the other pass rusher
Geez, I forgot his name, but yeah, Henderson did get hurt. I can't
was it
remember.
Hendrickson or the other guy that got hurt?
Hendrickson.
He did. Okay. Somebody like hurt their wrist, dislocated their wrist or broke their wrist,
I
something.
think it was him. Let me double check.
Yeah. One of
I
them's
got
banged
good
up.
news. Get good news on Hendrickson.
Okay.
But yeah, he
But
suffered an
yeah,
injury.
I don't want to deal with that front. I mean, they consistently harass Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I don't want to play them, but we did beat the pants off of them earlier this year at the same time, whereas Miami beat us.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. And I just always feel like it's
It
difficult when
was
you play a
Hendrickson.
team.
Okay.
Yeah, when you play a team 3 times in a season, you just don't. You don't know what you're gonna get unless you've obviously just been dominating them, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
And
they
it
got
could
me
be back-to-back games, Jimbo, because you're playing
right.
them in week 18, and then you can turn around and play them again in the first round of the playoffs.
So if we bump to 2, that would and everything else stayed the same, that would be the absolute scenario.
Or if Cincinnati dropped a spot because they lost to the Ravens in week 17 and Miami won out.
That's true.
You know, so it's looking more and more likely it's going to be one of those two teams. I don't see the New England Patriots going on a run that would vault them ahead of those
Yeah.
other two wild card. I'm trying to think. Like, do you think that the Jets could go on a tear? Could LA go on a tear? I
Well,
mean,
I think
Jacksonville looks like they could beat anyone when they're playing well.
yeah, it's crazy, right? But
Yeah,
I think well, and look, the division leader, they're only what 2 games out.
exactly.
So that's a really interesting one as well. But and the Jets got quarterback issues. I don't know, man. I feel like you're talking about those 3 teams that are like the quasi 7 seeds. If I had to put money on one, I think it's the Chargers. Even though they're in a tough AFC West, they have the best quarterback. And so for me,
Yeah.
they've been super up and down. They've been chargering it up. But yeah, I think I'd go with the Chargers.
Yeah, Ravens O's Nation's hoping for the Jets to get in there. I just don't see it with their offense in the kind of the
Yeah.
condition that it's in. Their defense is I think good enough to get it done, but man, it just seems like without a quarterback, it's just so freaking tough unless you're so elite somewhere else. But even then, it seems unlikely. Just look around the playoffs. Typically, all those teams have a good quarterback, and they just don't have one yet.
Yeah.
Even when their starter's healthy, which that's unfortunate for them because they got a championship ready defense, and that's just got to be tough when you're a defensive player on their team and you got half of what you need. But yeah, you can't do it without a quarterback. So yeah, I hope it's the Jets too. That would be ideal, but I think it's going to be either the Bengals or the Dolphins. And either one, I mean, I think the Ravens will obviously be favored, but I'll feel confident. But let me ask you this, Jimbo. Is there a let's say they win, let's say they beat the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. Is there a place you'd rather go if you had to go in the second round, either Kansas City or Buffalo? What would be your preference traveling into their stadium?
I think I'd rather go to Buffalo. I think I'd rather go to Buffalo because we already saw them this year once. So I think that gives us an advantage.
They've already seen us too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a good point. And I don't know, man. I just have more fear of I don't fear any of these teams, but I have more it's not respect either. I have more concern around Andy Reid.
Not respect. I don't have respect either.
No. Did I say that? Dang, I didn't mean it like that. I have respect for. Respect wasn't the word I was looking for.
Oh, gotcha.
I have more concern.
Yeah.
With Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs than I do the Buffalo Bills. I feel better about and then you got to think about the redemption opportunity the Ravens will have. They were able to right the wrong when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. Now, it'd be awesome to get through the first round. Then they right the wrong of the Buffalo Bills. Look, I mean, who knows what happens after that? So I think I would prefer the Bills. What about you?
Yeah, I think I go the Bills too. I do think that Kansas City's defense has shown they can get ran on. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And while I think Pacheco is a pretty nice story, the running back for Kansas City, I still don't buy into Andy Reid's ability to stick with it. I think he just falls in love with the passing game, and I think he'll ultimately revert back to that when the moment's at its biggest. But I still think we have the best chance of going into Buffalo and beating them because isn't this team built to play in conditions like that? Like we saw Anthony Brown at quarterback last week in a drive that it's like Ronnie Stanley said, the ultimate compliment to a lineman is when the front across from you knows exactly what you must do. You have to run the ball.
Yep.
And it did not matter. They did it anyway. So I think we already saw that this team can run the ball even when the defense knows it's running. It knows that you're running it. And so for that reason, I'm going to hope that the Ravens could take that mentality and that game plan into Buffalo, albeit playing a probably even tougher defense, even in the absence of Von Miller. It's a hell of a defense and run against those guys, even though they know that's what we came there to do. So that would be my confidence level.
Yeah,
there.
no, and that's a good point to consider because if it's a more favorable matchup from a running standpoint, then you think Kansas City naturally, right? But like you said, I mean, teams know what we're going to do anyway, so you kind of throw those things out when you get into the playoffs. So
it's a good point though. Tim raises a good point in the chat. He says that Russell Wilson and his backup put up 28 on KC. That's a good point. That offense looked so bad when
Yeah.
we last saw them, and they put up
Yeah.
28
Starting to
points.
sway me. Starting
Yeah,
to sway me.
that's a pretty good argument there.
Yeah, that is. Oh man. And I'll say the other thing too is that it's nice to know that the run game, we've taken it on the road this year, right? Like you remember the New Orleans game? We ran the
Yeah.
rock really well. And then obviously the Steelers game, we ran the rock really well. So that's
Mhm.
also encouraging. There's not like a trend to being overwhelmingly better at home. So that's exciting as well. But man, you know what, Glenn? I hate I'm doing this, but I'm gonna flip it.
You rather go in?
Gosh, dang it, man. I'm going to, but I just get so nervous with 1:40 left and Mahomes with the football in his hand.
Can the same not be said for Josh
No,
Allen?
because I feel like Mahomes he's gonna get every call. He's like the successor to Tom Brady, right? He's gonna get every call, he's gonna get every opportunity, he's gonna get everything that he can get in the final drive to get that ball in the end zone.
Okay. Well,
So
I
that makes
mean,
me a little concerned.
yeah, I think both of them would have me nervous, but I will say we've seen Josh Allen throw picks in the end zone in those same situations where I can't recall too many times where Pat Mahomes has thrown the game away.
Yeah. Yeah, so either
Mhm.
way, it's a tough matchup.
Yeah,
But
hey, you
look,
got to beat the best if you want to be the best.
And look, at the end of the day, they got to deal with this team too. It's not like they're the only a team, the only we would if we're there for a reason, right? So like
Yeah.
like we've said, we got a run game, we got Lamar Jackson, and
Hmm.
we got probably the second best tight end in the NFL, and we got a strong defense. But really, Glenn, we've talked about the first round and the second round. I got to ask you this question because it's a storyline that often gets created inside the Twitterverse of Ravens flock.
Oh.
What is your belief behind some people who say that this type of offense cannot score in the playoffs because teams are just going to stack the box and dare you to throw? What say
Mhm.
you about that? Are you on that side? Do you think it's more complex than that? Or kind of where does your opinion land when it comes to that narrative?
Well, I think it's important if you're going to be a team that likes to run that loves to run the ball. You have to show that you can still win one-on-ones on the outside if a team is going to sell out and overload the box, right? I think it's fair that it would be tough to run against a 9-man box every single time if teams are just going to put a single coverage on your receivers on the outside and say, we don't believe your guy can get open against my guy, and we're going to overload the box and just give you nowhere to run the ball. I think if a team employs that strategy, the Ravens have to show that they can win outside. But having said that, I think we got some guys who can win outside. We haven't seen a ton of it because for one, our quarterback's been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also I think there's been some schematic challenges as well. So I'll say I think I have confidence that Demarcus Robinson, from what I've seen, can be the guy that could do that. Obviously, we know what we have in the tight end room. My only concern is if Robinson's the only guy,
Mm-hmm.
Jimbo, what is Duvernay going to do? Because I haven't seen Duvernay catch a damn ball on offense in too long. So while I have confidence in some guys, and I do think the system could work, Bateman ain't out there. If
Yeah.
Bateman's out there, it's a different thought process. It's a whole different level of confidence. I have confidence in Demarcus Robinson because he's shown he can do it. But who's going to be the Robin to his Batman or vice versa?
Is it D-Jack? I mean, at this point, I can't
Crazy.
argue with you, Glenn, right? Because I've been beaten down the door when it comes to Devin Duvernay, and he's
Mm-hmm.
shown in moments. And I don't know if it's his inability to get open. I don't know if it's the quarterback, the play is not being drawn up for him. I don't know if the quarterbacks don't trust him. I don't know what it is, but I certainly thought with now, we saw Tyler Huntley for a decent amount of time, but, he ended up getting hurt. I thought that with a second and a third string quarterback, they're going to throw it anywhere. They're going to throw it to a guy who is going to be in a short passing type scenario. But like you said, the out stuff went to DeMarcus. They didn't even really look anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, man, somebody's got to step up, whether it's Duvernay or whether
Mm-hmm.
it's Deshaun Jackson. It's got to be someone. Now, I will say this, with Deshaun continuing to stay healthy and integrating himself more and more into this offense,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's exciting when you look at it this way, right? You have players that can beat you at every level. Mark, you can go from any level of the defense, Mark can beat you, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
you think about JK's ability to catch out of the backfield, and you think Deshaun beating you deep, and then you think about Duvernay just with the ball in his hands and an intermediate to short type stuff, and then you got DeMarcus on the outside. There's still a lot left to work with.
Is there?
I feel like there is. I mean, when it all comes together, I think that there is. And so,
well, let's get even more into it, because I think this is a topic that gets people fired up, and
yep.
I think we have to. It kind of naturally took us there, so let's just talk about it a little bit. The Cowboys bring in Odell Beckham for a workout. They see that it looks to me that they don't feel like his knee's ready to go. That they saw during that they don't think he's going to be a contributor that can help this year. So why add him?
Yeah, they got T.Y. Hilton.
So they add T.Y. Hilton, who must have looked good in his workout, obviously passed his physical, and I'm sure that right now he's healthy. Then the Buffalo Bills also kind of kicked the tires on Odell Beckham, and they ultimately decide to go get Cole Beasley out of retirement and going to add him to the practice squad. And ultimately, I think he'll find his way onto the roster before playoffs. The Ravens added Djax, but do you think they should go a step further and maybe look? It looks like it's down to what the Giants in on Odell, who are sliding and just plummeting, nosedive.
Yeah.
Who else is going to ask for Odell Beckham's services? Do you think the Ravens could use this as an opportunity with the market seemingly shrinking to jump on a guy? Or do you think his knee is just not there? And if he can't help the Cowboys, how can he help us?
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys, made it pretty clear that the knee's not there because they would have taken him. There's no way Jerry Jones would have pounced at the opportunity to have Odell Beckham in Dallas, right?
Yeah.
It's a match made in heaven from a publicity standpoint. If his knee was anything close to right, I think Jerry would have done it. I don't even think it was borderline. Is unfortunate. Like I want the guy to be healthy, but I think if it's anything, if it's something different than that, then yeah, you got to kick the tires on him, right? I mean, you have to, but I just don't think it's there. I don't think he's ready.
So when you see teams adding something, like,
right,
does it frustrate you?
Nah, stuff like that doesn't frustrate me. Because look, I maybe to a fault, but I really think more of it has to do with in-house strategizing and execution. I think Likely has ability, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that Duvernay has ability. I think that we need to figure out how to get these guys the ball. It's not really about getting guys in.
But what if they're just not talented enough to get open?
Man,
like we saw all the great catches we saw from Duvernay.
Right.
They were all heavily contested. Like, I don't remember seeing him just and just get open and shake a guy. Like, I mean, so maybe it's just no matter what you draw, or maybe it is simply just the scheme is just not getting it done.
Yeah, because this is the thing. I got to go back and watch some tape. The people have got to respect Duvernay's speed, right? So there's got to be some space between him and the guy in front of him.
I just still think he's not right because he don't look right on kick returns either.
He doesn't, yeah.
Something ain't right with him. He's gutting it out, but I guarantee when the season's over, we hear about something,
a surgery
some sort of cleanup, something. What about the fans are frustrated about the lack of Andy Isabella? Is this a guy who can honestly come in and help this team? Well, yeah, Will Fuller retired, guys. As Sean put up in there, he hung it up.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to Andy, I have more faith in him than a lot of people, just because he's an absolute burner. So
but don't you think if he was able to help the team, he'd be active?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. Can't disagree with that. But look, at the same time, what the heck are you getting out of James Prochet anymore?
I mean, my goodness.
At the very least, with Andy out there, it's not like the guy can stand in front of him and just say, "All right, dude, you're not going to run past me." Like it allows for a new element to be in play, a new threat to be in play. It would be a difficult proposition to put him and Djax out there and say, "All right, we'll keep him in front of you."
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, so I'm not against it. I'd like to see it, but like you said, I mean, if it were real, he'd already be up, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it sounds like, Glenn, you're a little concerned about our ability to score points in the playoffs.
Well, I'm concerned if a certain scenario, like everybody has a worst
so like if
case,
we get down.
Yeah, of course. Like any worst case scenario, like if you look at Buffalo, they can't run the ball when they need to. So they can't keep the opposing offense off the field. They struggle in red zone because they just can't run the ball. They have no effectiveness on the ground.
Yeah.
So, in certain situations, they're going to be. So, in the situation, the worst case situation for us is, let's say the Ravens kick off to start the game, and through a well orchestrated and planned drive, the whatever team scores on their opening drive, and let's say they kick it off, and we fumble the kickoff, and then they score. Boom! Now we're down 14-0, and there's 8 minutes left in the first quarter. I worry that they're going to get taken out of their run first scheme and try and wing the ball around, and then stuff's going to get ugly, and the snowball effect will occur.
Yeah, I mean that's a really difficult. It's hard to argue with you that Roman won't do that, but I would say that in that scenario specifically, there's still plenty of time where they can stay patient and run the football. But if that happens in the second half and we're down 14 in the beginning of the fourth quarter, then what do you start to think, right? So yeah, that is a tough scenario for me to confront with confidence. But man, I feel like there's still there's still so much there when it comes to the potential that these guys have as a unit. And I think that some people are writing them off a little too early.
Yeah, well, if the game script goes how the Ravens hope,
right,
then it's not, then you're not even going to see this as an issue because they're going to get a big monster lead and gobble up 11 minutes per drive and let that defense that's been playing as a top 3 defense since Roquan's gotten here play exactly. I mean, I expect this defense to play at the highest of levels for the remainder of the season. And I expect the run game to continue to get better, and it's already pretty damn good. So if game script goes to plan, they won't have an issue. But, it doesn't seem like it's gone that way for the Ravens the last couple of years, especially. I hope. Here's what I hope. While I said I'd rather go into Buffalo because I think they're built more to play in that weather, I don't want it to be freaking raining during any of their playoff games. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the nasty weather throwing a wrench in all this stuff. Let it be cold. That's fine. But can we not have a damn monsoon during the game?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And then in Kansas City, you always got to deal with the cold and the wind. I mean, I feel like the wind there's always whipping. Yeah, it's man, there's a lot of interesting scenarios here. I'll say this though. I still have faith that the Ravens can score points in the playoffs. I think it's fair to say that, other than the Buffalo game, they did it the last time in the playoffs. If you're talking about the Titans game, it's not like we didn't put up points when we beat the Titans. The Buffalo, obviously we didn't against Buffalo, but
yeah, but they struggled. Remember, Lamar had that heroic run.
Yeah, it was rough.
Like it was heroics to get some points.
Yeah, but it's the playoffs.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean, that's when heroes are made, right?
That's right. That's right. It's where legends are born.
That's right. So I still have faith. I might have a little more confidence than you, and maybe it's just based on my fandom, right? Maybe it's just my hopes and dreams, and maybe not my logical brain. But I'm gonna ride with this team in the offense, saying they can score points in the postseason. So I think we're also agreed. Well, actually, it sounds like you're sticking with Buffalo as your ideal second round area, and
but it looks like they're gonna have to go to both, most likely.
Right, absolutely. So I mean, look, like you said, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And certainly there'll be some movement. Let's pull this back up real quick, Glenn. I'm gonna just slide this back up on the screen here. There'll be some movement of I really think that it's possible that all 7 of these they all say the same, or honestly, it's possible that they could all move, right? They could all absolutely move, right? 7 certainly, same thing with 6. Who knows what happens with the Bengals? They got a tough road left. They still got us and the Bills. 2 division leaders on their schedule left. And of course Miami still got a game against the Bills. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And like you said, Glenn, who knows what happens with Jacksonville and Tennessee in that division, and as well as Jacksonville's playing right now. So, there's a lot that's going to happen. Let me ask you this, not really related to the Ravens, but who do you see as a dark horse, non-division leader to really push the envelope in this year's playoffs in the AFC?
So my choices are Miami. I mean, well, Cincinnati.
Anywhere from Jacksonville to Cincy.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati would be the obvious choice. But I will say this. If Jacksonville can somehow catch Tennessee, I'd be more nervous playing Jacksonville than Tennessee just because of how the Ravens are built and
Yep.
how they're so good against the run. I believe they could take Derrick Henry out of the game, and then, in my opinion, Tennessee's toast. Whereas Jacksonville's shown they can score. They're a dangerous team, man, and they're putting it together. They believe in their coach. I remember after we lost to them, the defensive player on their team, coach or on their team, said that he would. I want to say he would either die for Coach Peterson or kill for Coach Peterson,
Mm,
maybe both.
mm,
But you can tell that guy is just, he's got them guys believing, man. Got them guys
mhm.
playing strong. So the season might run out of time for Jacksonville. And they kind of may have dug themselves too deep of a hole. But Jacksonville is a team that is, I think, playing scary. And then, of course, Cincinnati, they're playing really, really well right now. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have to play them if I'm one of these high flying teams, because if you want to get into a shootout, they'll gladly get into a shootout with you,
Right.
and they got the weapons to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think I'll say the Chargers. I kind of mentioned it earlier, just because I think of outside of the Bengals, probably 6 through 8 or 6 through Miami down to Jacksonville is what I'm trying to say. I think they're probably the best quarterback, and so Justin Herbert's just a really good quarterback, and
Yeah,
and he's got weapons there. So that'll
but
be
they're the
interesting to see.
Chargers.
They are the Chargers at the end of the day, but one day things have got to
Of course,
change,
they were
right?
the Bengals, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm interested to see what happens with the Ravens here. I think that we're slotting them in to win the division and probably staying in at 3, but you really never know what could happen. I'll be interested to see all you that are in the comment section what your ideal first round matchup would be if all things stay the same. Would you prefer that the Ravens say they hop to 2, or would you rather the Ravens see the Bengals or the Dolphins, depending on who ends up with the 5th or 6th seed and who ends up with the 2nd or 3rd? But who would you prefer them to see? And then, of course, in the second round, would you prefer it be the Bills or the Chiefs? Us assuming, of course, that they both that the second seed gets a first round win.
And were all our predictions, like playoff predictions, all that was based on the understanding that Lamar Jackson would be under center, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Lamar's not under center,
Scrap
forget
all that.
about
We
it.
just take what we said, throw it out the window.
Just right out the window.
Okay, we love Tyler Huntley, and we certainly love what we've seen so far.
But he's not Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Neither of the two backups are Lamar Jackson. So yeah, let's hope that Lamar will be back when it matters most. And it's fine if he wants to wait until then. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what we'll do, Glenn, probably is at least make this a part of our Tuesday night every week now until the playoffs, right? We've got to. I mean, this has got to be top of mind moving forward. So yeah, I think that was really fun. It's fun to watch these scenarios break down and watch the playoff picture clear up. Let's hope that the Ravens don't fall apart here and that Lamar ends up coming back. I don't envision that happening. But make sure you tune in with us on Thursday night. We're going to be previewing the Browns or the Ravens Browns matchup, of course, with Deshaun Watson, his first matchup against the Baltimore Ravens as a Cleveland Brown. So we're gonna break it all down for you guys. Of course, reveal our over-unders for our next competition, do all of that good stuff. So make sure you stay tuned in here. And shout out to Sean Pisker one more time.
Yeah, Sean, champ. You the champ.
That's right, man. Make sure to get your information over to us and we'll get that shirt over to you. But Glenn, this has been fun, man.
Yeah, it's always bittersweet starting to talk playoff scenarios and playoff pictures, because while it's exciting that the Ravens are looking like they're going to be in the dance, it's also sad to know that we're getting to that time of year and this football season's getting to the back half or the back quarter of it. We're almost out of the season. It's just insane. But yeah, at least the Ravens have a pretty good chance. Last year was just so devastating with the lead they had, just to watch it game by game, then just drop down the standings.
Yep.
Was pretty painful, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case this year. 99% chance they make the playoffs, but let us know what you guys think.
Yep.
What's your dream scenario in the playoffs? Who you hoping for? And then also, who gives you the most cause for concern? Like, is there a team that you go, man, I don't want to play them till we absolutely have to, or hope that this team can knock off that team because we match up better against these guys? Let us know all your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
See ya.